good day or good night wherever or whenever you are. We are Group 2 and we will be presenting on Pteridophyta, more specifically ferns, whisk ferns, and horsetails. My group members are Rajiv Jagdeo, Rukmini Uttam, Nisha Richards, Nicholas Sagade, and myself, Lohitaksh Shiva. This slide lists the topics of which we'll be covering in today's presentation. What are Pteridophytes by Rukmini Uttam, Ferns by Nisha Richards, Whisk Ferns by Rajiv Jagdeo, Horsetails by Nicholas Sagade, and a conclusion by myself. Without further ado, I'll hand you over to Rukmini.
Okay, so to begin our presentation, we must know what are pteridophytes. Now, pteridophyte attains its name from two Greek words, pteris meaning fern and phyton meaning plants. They are the first terrestrial plants which have body differentiated into roots, stems, and leaves, and can be found in mostly shaded and moist places, cracks in rocks, and even grow on other plants. Their leaves are made up of leaflets, which are called sporophylls, as they are spore-bearing leaves, also known as cryptogams because their reproductive organs are underdeveloped and are hidden in form of spores. Now, pteridophytes contain vascular tissues which are vital for survival on land, along with its body structure, of course, but they lack a xylem vessel and phloem companion cells. Examples of pteridophyte include ferns, whisk ferns, and even horsetail. Now, these examples are used as ornamental plants. I'll now hand you over to my next colleague, Nichelle, who will be doing the first examples, fern.
Now let's get into the taxonomy of ferns. Ferns are classified under four classes, namely Xylotopsida, Equisitopsida, Marachiopsida, and Polypodiopsida. It should be noted that fern is like a general name given to species of ferns under different classification. So I should mention that there are 11 orders, and third of 7 families in ferns. Continuing looking at the taxonomy of all the ferns listed below in this slide belongs to the kingdom of Plantae and the phylum of Pteridophyta. Firstly, we will look at class of Marachiopsida. Now, this has an order of Marachiales and belongs to a family of Marachiaceae. And some of the genera are Angiopteris and Machiorata. Now we look at the class of Psilotypsida. It has an order of Ophioglossales and a family belonging to Ophioglossiaceae, and some classes belonging to not classes, I meant genre of the Batricium, Helminthus stichis, and Manchayucua. Now, if we look below, we can see that Psilotopsida has another classification group which has an order of the Psilotales and a family of the Psilotaceae and a genre of the Psilotorium. Now we'll look at the class of Equisitopsida, which has an order of Equusales, a family of Equisetaceae, and a genre of Equisetum. And now we'll look at the class of Polypodiopsida, which has an order of the Hymenophales, a family belonging to the Hymenophaliaceae, and a genre of the Tritomans and Hyphalophilum. Now we just look at another example of classification of the class Polypopsido. Sorry about that. Um, the order of the Polypodidae, which has a family of the Lyncaceae and a genre of the Cytodium, the Lyncae, the Lonchitius, the Ondotosaura, and so on. Now, these examples are just a brief of the classification under ferns. There are many more, and as we continue with this presentation, you will see some common examples and the classification. Now I'd like to move on to the structure of ferns. Now we'll look at the structure of the fern. Now the structure tells us many things about this plant. Example, how it receives water, the shape, and so on. So now, ferns have a vascular tissue, and these tissue are complex and they help with the transportation of water through the xylem and phloem. Xylem transports water and minerals, and xylem transport water, and phloem is like the minerals and the food stuff and so on. Now, water is transported to all parts of the fern with the aid of the tracheae cells. These cells are thick and strong, with an also it aids in supporting the stem. Continuing looking at the structure of ferns, the leaves of ferns are known as fronds. Now, they are responsible for photosynthesis, hence its color. It is divided, well, the fronds is divided into a stalk. It could be stripe, well, also known as stripe, and these fronds are classified according to their shape. It could be simple, pinned, penatiphid, or two-pinned or two-pinnatiphid. Now, with continue the structure, look at rhizomes. It should be noted that ferns do not have true roots, and but they have rhizomes which basically perform the function of roots. Now, it can be found partially or completely on the ground, and it contains the transportation tissues, as we know from earlier slides, called the xylem and the phloem. Now, the leaves or the fronds that we mentioned in the slide above are derived from these rhizomes. Now, fern stems can vary from being narrow, tall, and it could reach up to 25 meters. Or it could be clumped and creeping rootstocks. For the final part of the structure, we look at the sporangium. Now, this is the reproductive part of the fern. Now, they contain numerous of haploid spores which can be found anywhere on the ferns. It can also be seen in groups or single. When it's in group, it is called the sporus. It is usually 50 or 30 micrometers in length. Now, a few fern families, however, have diamorphic spores, which meaning diamorphic meaning like two types or two shapes, being small, the microspores, or large one called megaspores. Now we look at the ecology of ferns, basically where they grow and live. So let's pay attention to the graph below. Now, in this graph, it is showing ferns, the first species, ferns, and then the second species is of large trees. Now, if we pay attention to the x-axis, it shows from a low light intensity to high light intensity. And the ferns are located within the light between the low to medium light intensity. Now, this is telling us that ferns cannot tolerate high light intensity, so they need to be partially shaded with some exceptions, such as the sun ferns. Now, ferns are abundant in the tropics. They don't like cold places. They like hot places, but as we mentioned before, it cannot be too hot. Now, some ferns can grow equally on land and on rocks. They are mostly located in areas such as ponds, floating on rivers, and even swamps. Ferns can grow in fissures and crevices of cliff faces, boulders. Acidic rocks such as granite, sandstones, and quartzites are associated with characteristics of fern species. Now, you see, ferns are diverse organisms. They can grow in many places and areas once they have suitable light and suitable areas in which they need to grow. Thank you. That is all for my part of this presentation.
Next, we will look at the taxonomy, structure, and ecology of whisk ferns. Looking at the taxonomy of Silotum nudum or whisk ferns, they belong to the kingdom Plantae. The phylum is Tracheophyta, the class is Polypodiopsida, the order is Silotales, the family is Silotaceae, the genus is Silotum, and the species is Silotum nudum. Looking at the structure of whisk ferns, they appear to not be comprised of anything other than stems. These stems are the parts of the plant which take place in photosynthesis. When looking at whisk ferns, it can be seen as a sporophyte generation. They are vascular, however, they do not give rise to true leaves. The leaf-like scales are labeled as innations, which do not have vascular tissue but house the spores in a type of fused sporangia that they produce that turns bright yellow as they mature. Whisk ferns have a branching rhizome that has hair-like projections called rhizoids, which help to anchor the plant in place and absorb nutrients and water. Here we have a picture showing the whisk ferns with yellow sporangia. The whisk fern distribution has been seen to occur mostly in tropical and subtropical landmasses on Earth. In certain areas they are rarely found, while in other areas they are abundantly found. They are found mostly in the crevices of rocks or on the branches and trunks of trees. P. complanatum often leads an epiphytic lifestyle, even though all two species grow on trees. A mutualistic relationship, starting off as parasitism, is formed between mycorrhizal fungi and increases the surface area of absorption of the plant. Since it is a mutualistic relationship, the whisk ferns would provide the fungi with carbohydrates that they would have synthesized through photosynthesis. The spores will grow into the other half of the whisk fern life cycle, which is the gametophyte, when they find a place that is suitable to germinate. These contain male and female reproductive organs and have a similar appearance which is smaller than that of the rhizome. The gametophytes rely on mycorrhizal fungi for nutrition because they do not photosynthesize. It was said before that it starts off as a parasitic relationship because this will go on until the gametophytes are fertilized and grows a new sporophyte.
Good evening, everybody. This is Nicholas. I'll be covering horsetails. I'll be looking at its taxonomy, structure, and ecology, respectively, similar to that of the whisk ferns and the ferns. Okay, so looking at the taxonomy for horsetails. Now, before I do that, I would like to touch briefly on some points that I believe are pertinent before I go into the taxonomy. Okay, so horsetails. They are a class in the Pteridophyta ferns. They were, I emphasize on the word were, one of the most important plant groups in the Paleozoic era. They are seen in the coal measures of the Carboniferous period. and some were trees that reached up to 30 meters. The group is now almost extinct, but one genus survives. Now, horsetails, they are vascular plants that reproduce by spores and not by seeds. The name horsetail arose because of the branch species somewhat resemble a horsetail. You can see that in the photo there. As mentioned earlier, I'll now elaborate on that one species that remains today, and that is the equisteum. The name equisteum comes from the Latin word equus, means horse, and seta, that means bristle. The genus includes 15 species. Horsetails are native on all continents except Australia and Antarctica. Okay, moving on to the actual division. Now, horsetails are part of the kingdom Plantae. The division is Pteridophyta. The class is Equistopsida. The order is Equistalis. The family is Equistaceae, and the genus is Equisteum. The species are E. variegatum. Okay, now moving on to the structure of horsetails. Now, horsetails have both upright stems and horizontal stems called rhizomes that extend along the ground, their roots emerging from the rhizomes. In these plants, the leaves are very small in hairs joined together to make sheets around the stem. The stems are green and photosynthetic, also distinctive in being hollow, jointed, and rigid, usually about 6 to 40 ridges approximating 2 to 8 meters. They may or may not be whorls of branches at the nodes. This is completely optional. When present, these branches are identical to the main stem, except smaller. Stems contains the crystals of silica, making the plant abrasive. For you who may not know, abrasive simply means rigid and tough. We know that silica improves the resistance to abiotic stress for plants as well as complex reactions in the physiology of the plant. This creates a dynamic interplay between the plant metabolism and the cell wall structure. Finally, touching on the ecology, horsetails, they are very unique survivors of an ancient group of vascular plants, the Sphenophyta, which has a history of reaching back to the Upper Devonian. Despite the striking convertesium of equisteum, architecture, and anatomy and the small number of species, which is 15, in the modern flora, their ability to thrive under a wide range of conditions is absolutely remarkable. This is due to a diverse suite of adaptations that allow tolerance of disturbance. Soil anoxia, high metals, salinity, along with efficient nutrient uptake and nitrogen fixation. The giant horsetails represent the largest living Sphenophyta and provide insights on how their larger ancestors lived and how this ancient lineage has managed to survive even in tropical regions. Horsetails, although poisonous to livestock, are used by humans in folk medicines. Some species are utilized in polishing tools because of their abrasive stems. I recently talked about their abrasive stems in this structure slide. Concerning their reproductive capabilities, horsetails, like other vascular plants, display an alternation of generations, and a sexual phase represented by sporophyte, or the horsetail plant rather, and a sexual phase by the gametophyte, an inconspicuous or delicate green plant. Each year, many gametophytes are initiated from spores, but apparently very few produce sporophytes in nature. Horsetails apparently survive mainly by vegetative reproduction rather than by regular dependence on the sexual cycle. Okay, so that's about it for the horsetail. I will allow Lohit to conclude this presentation.
Now, finally, we'll have a conclusion by myself. To summarize the information presented, Pteridophyta are the first terrestrial plants which have body parts differentiated into roots, stems, and leaves, and can be found in moist, shady places, cracks of rocks, and even grow on other plants. Some examples of Pteridophyta are ferns, whisk ferns, and horsetails. Ferns are classified under 4 classes, 11 orders, and 37 families. They have 3 main structures and are usually found in tropical places. Whisk ferns are a genus of ferns which are made up of stems. They are vascular but don't give rise to true leaves, and they are found in tropical and subtropical parts of the earth. Finally, horsetails were one of the most important plant groups in the Paleozoic era.
but now are close to extinction with only one genus left in existence. They have upright and horizontal stems which extend from the ground, and some are even green and jointed. Just like the others, they are found in tropical and subtropical areas of the earth. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Here is a list of our references.